So, April 1st tomorrow. What's the worst April Fool's prank you've either done or had done to you? When me and my younger brother were little, we wanted to prank our mom. My brother had a slight cold. We looked up the worst possible diagnosis with these symptoms and basically claimed the doctor said that's what he likely had. Even looked up on how this disease was reported and how it was generally handled. Told her on the phone while she was at work, thinking we were being so funny. The disease we came up with was tuberculosis. Suffice to say, Mom left work early that day. That wasn't very pleasant for everyone involved. I knew my boss was having a piano delivered that morning, so I told him that his wife called as it was too heavy and had fallen through TGE floor. He fell for it, but I am sure it limited my career. Used to work in a nursing home. One year we took all of the furniture out of the administrator's office and made it look like a patient's room. I'm talking bed, dresser, TV, medical equipment, the works, all along with a patient who was in on it in the bed. When he came in the next morning, he just about died laughing. One of my better memories from working in that shithole. My wife was 6 months pregnant and called me at work and told me her water had just broke. My mom has a condition where she's constantly cold, even in the summer. My sisters took a master lock and put it through the prongs of her heating blanket. She responded in the middle of the night by dumping water on both of them while they were sleeping to find the key. One year a coworker left his desk and neglected to lock his computer. I took a screenshot of his desktop, moved all his folders from his desktop and replaced his background to the screenshot of his desktop I took earlier. He came back and was confused why none of his folders, shortcuts or files on his desktop were working. My mom and her friend would randomly pull pranks on each other when I was little, so around 30 years ago. That ended when her friend listed my parents' house for sale in the local small-town newspaper, with the footnote, "Divorce pending." My mom did not appreciate having to individually explain to practically the entire town that she was not getting a divorce and her house was not for sale. When I was still in school, I decided to wake the house up 4 hours early by changing the clocks and waking everyone up in a panic saying we are late. Joke was on me though, as I was far too tired to function for the rest of the day though. My birthday is on April 2nd. When I was about 8 years old, my dad told me on April Fool's Day that President Bush called and said there were no more birthdays, they were illegal. I believed the shit out of him and cried my eyes out. I still remember it very vividly. This one comes from my father when he was in university residence. This happened while the original series of Star Trek was being broadcast for the first time. One of the students on their floor loved the character Spock, who is a member of a species well known for not displaying emotion. Loved the character to such an extent that they emulated his mannerisms, such an extent that the most reaction one could get out of this person was fascinating. Upon returning from a lecture, this student found a simple note taped to his door. The note read, "There has been a transporter malfunction. The contents of this room have been teleported to the bathroom. The floors each had a communal bathroom." To confirm that this wasn't some low-effort prank, the student opened the door and, as promised, the entire contents of their room were gone. So they walked to the bathroom and found all their belongings, perfectly assembled in the same manner as they were normally placed in their room. The student stood there for a moment in silence, then uttered a single word, "Fascinating." After everyone else recovered from laughing, which I imagine took several minutes, they all pitched in to move the student's belongings back to their original place in their original room. Uncle's wife was pregnant with her first and I, being a funny 12-yo, decided for some reason to pull a prank on my grandma and tell her that her daughter-in-law went into labor and is giving birth to the baby in the garage. Grandma gets overwhelmed and heads outside while also trying to reach out to her son and other people to organize transport, only to find out Dill is just chilling in the garage tidying up stuff. OBV, everybody gets mad at me and I get grounded. Fair enough. 4 hours later, Uncle's wife goes into labor for real and ends up delivering the baby the same day on the first, haha, and I got to name the baby. This was big news, mistaken for a joke. I was born on April 1st. The birth was pretty hard on my mother and my mom had an estranged relationship with her mom, but thought she should know that she had a new grandchild, despite everything. My mom gave her the news via phone call. My grandmother's response? "What the fuck? You called me for the first time in 2 years just to tell me a goddamn April Fool's joke? You're worthless." Then she hung up. My mother wept. My father called his mother-in-law and told her off, stating that she could visit me after I graduate high school. This tale actually has a happy ending. My grandmother actually drove 10 hours from her home to the hospital to apologize to my mother in person. She visited me, too. From there, her relationship with my mom improved and they were on good terms when my grandmother died in 1996. My friend convinced me that, Due to the proximity to Easter, the Pope had cancelled April Fool's Day and had it rescheduled for the following week. It worked. I stayed up late and then switched the sugar with salt by the coffee machine. The following morning I proceeded to wake up and make myself a steaming hot cup of salted coffee because I'm an idiot. One time I super glued a giant dildo to the trailer hitch on my roommate's truck. Took him 2 weeks to find out it was there. Every year, I put something in my mom's coffee. One year, almond extract. The next, artificial butter flavor. When I was 10, I put salt in her coffee, then went to the bathroom. After wiping, realized there's blood on the tissue and in my underwear. Went to mom and asked her how she got me so good. It dawned on both of us at the same time and she just said something along the lines of, "Welcome to womanhood." Kept asking people if they had found my prank yet. Did it for approximately 3 months. Finally cracked, there was no prank. I was lazy, but God was it funny. Mom packed lunches for my dad and my brother to take to school. Dad was a teacher. She cut out squares of waxed paper just a little bit smaller than the bread and put it in the sandwich along with the egg salad. Dad thought it was a very good prank. Brother ate his whole sandwich and never noticed it. I put an "out of order" sign on the men's bathroom at work. In tiny font I put, "April Fools." Left it for a few hours. No one realized it was a joke, so I felt a little bad. All the guys have to go find other bathrooms. One I've had done to me was by my dad. He tied the handle down on the sink sprayer when he left for work. When I went to rinse out my cereal bowl, one got sprayed in the face and had to change before I left for school. I was pissed as a teenager, but as an adult find it hilarious. Got called in to work by my boss. I sarcastically laughed and said "nice try," and hung up. Next day I got called into the office being asked why I had an attitude for no reason when a simple, "Sorry I can't come in," was all she needed. Turned out she wasn't messing with me. Some context: when I was in my late teens I was in and out of the doctors a lot for abnormal bone growth. So all of my friends knew I had something wrong with me, just not exactly what. I was pretty scrawny looking, so I didn't exactly radiate the image of ideal health either. I'm 16 meters, in high school, it's April 1st and I have an anxiety attack during class. Teacher doesn't believe me, because it's April 1st, my anxiety only gets worse. Now I actually can't breathe, my chest hurts and I'm desperately trying to not cry in front of a full classroom. The teacher makes me explain what's wrong. I barely get out, my chest hurts, and my best friend stands up and starts explaining that I'm actually sick, and at some point I black out. I wake up 3 hours later in the hospital. Parents are there, they explain the anxiety attack, no big deal. I walk out into the little lobby area and all of my friends are there, all of them are ugly crying. They see me and mass hug me, I can barely understand them. I'm confused, my parents are confused. Finally one of my friends manages to stop long enough. "I'm so sorry to hear you have cancer." I don't have cancer? My best friend. April Fools guys TLDR. While I was in the hospital, my best friend told everyone we knew I had bone cancer as a fucking April Fool's joke. In middle school I attempted to put laxatives in my teacher's coffee. She definitely didn't deserve it. I was just being a little shit. On the way to school a kid took some of them from me and ended up shitting himself. I'm thankful he did because I only got suspended for intent. If I followed through, I would have been expelled. My parents made me write an apology letter and made me do manual labor during the course of my suspension. It was a very formative experience for me and I'm glad the consequences weren't terrible. I broke my neck in the summer of 2015. It required me to get a special chair at work. On April 1st, I got called into the office of my boss. Sitting in there were 3 new mothers who just returned from maternity leave. It was explained to me they needed my chair for a mother's lounge. I was stunned and speechless. I still needed the chair. I wouldn't be able to work without it. I felt anxiety and tears building up because I was so afraid to challenge them for fear of being called sexist or being insensitive man. They continued to explain to me why while I was in a mental fog. After a few minutes of stress, I finally got the guts to ask, "Is this an April Fool's joke? Why can't we just order them one?" They responded, "We can't wait for the chair to be ordered. This is not a joke." I left the office almost crying. I went to 2 of the women one-to-one after and asked them again if it was a joke. They repeatedly said it wasn't. Now, holding back even more tears, I went to our department managing director to explain what happened. He looked at me like I was the dumbest person ever hired there, and said, "You know what day it is, right?" Then, he walked down into our office space and everyone was laughing and saying they couldn't believe I fell for their April Fool's joke. In 5th grade, one didn't have any friends, except my teacher, who was cool. On April Fool's Day, a kid I really quite liked offered me one of his Oreos at lunch. I was thrilled, not because of the cookie, but because of the gesture of friendship. Yeah, he had replaced the Oreo's cream with toothpaste. Do attempts count? When I was like 15, I tried to tell my mom that I got a girl pregnant. She just looked at me and laughed loudly, crying. I was in 2nd grade. Our teachers loaded us up on a school bus and told us we were going to get pizza. We, being like 7 years old, were both stupid and excited. After we were all loaded on the bus and the head count was done, the teachers told us to quiet down for instructions. Then they both said, "April Fools," and we had to go back to class. A friend of mine wanted to tell her boyfriend that we slept together. Luckily, she told us her plan, and my roommate and I were able to convince her it was a horrible idea. I was working at a law firm. This was during the pandemic, so court was online. Chris goes into Dan's office and says, "Hey Dan, I'm double booked. Can you act as my agent and get this preliminary hearing adjourned?" They do that for each other all the time, so he said no problem. He was joking about it and generally having a good time. You could feel the energy in the room change when Dan read the document Chris had given him. We had done up a phony certificate that said his son was being charged with drunken disorderly. The best part is that when he figured it out, he said that any good joke has to be paid forward. So he called his son and told him that he'd been served with something interesting from the court. Their conversation was something like, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" "No? You know you can tell me anything." "Yeah, I know, because I get it. I was young and wild once too." He's the ultimate cool dad, and the son clearly didn't understand what was happening but was pretty nervous. I hooked a mouse to a friend's computer and moved it a tiny amount every few seconds. I worked the night shift at the front desk of my dorm on March 31st one year. Me and the other kid working took a sweatshirt and sweatpants, filled it with pillows and blankets, and made it look like someone fell asleep doing homework at the table in the back room. Scared the hell out of our boss when she went to wake him up and the dummy fell to the ground and split in half. As a child, I would wake up early and switch the salt and the sugar. My mom always took her coffee with sugar. I got my ass whooped each time. When I was 12, I decided not to do it. First time in 4 years. That day, my mother was fixing her coffee, looked at me and said, "Okay, smartass," and grabbed the salt shaker. But I had not switched them. She salted her own coffee. Boy, was she pissed. Showed up to 4th grade with a cast on my leg. Everybody immediately knew it was an April Fool's joke, and I had to spend the rest of the day with a fake cast on my leg. One year I mixed green food coloring into the scrambled eggs and served up green eggs and ham. My girlfriend thought it was disgusting and wouldn't eat them. They tasted fine, honest. The next year I separated the yolks from the whites and only put the coloring in the whites. Green eggs with yellow yolks and ham. She wouldn't eat them, and insisted that I was no longer allowed to make eggs on April 1st. On March 31st the next year, I very carefully used a hypodermic needle to inject green food coloring into the yolks of the eggs left in the container and put them back into the fridge. On the following morning, I kissed her and rolled over while she went down to make breakfast. I think my parents, living a few towns away, heard her scream when she cracked green eggs into the frying pan. I miss her. She was a good girlfriend. Not too bad but funny. My 10-year-old daughter taped ketchup packets under the toilet seat so that when I sat down to pee in the morning, all this red BLL DDDDD squirted into the toilet water. She got me, that's for sure. Sister decided it would be our comedic to put glue on the door handle. 3 months later, it wasn't sticky anymore. My brother was at the beginning of a nasty custody battle for his eldest daughter against her maternal grandparents. My mom called me crying and said that she, my niece and my brother were just pulled over by police, and that my brother had been arrested for something made up by his ex. I was so scared and concerned and was freaking out, crying, the whole 9 yards. It went on for quite a while, then I heard him laughing in the background. One of my friends duct taped me to my bed on a night he was staying over, snuck out around 5 in the morning. I woke up around 8 and couldn't move. I was stuck there for 2 hours before my parents woke up to me screaming for them. I was at a pub that had a jukebox. You couldn't play the same song twice, but I found out they had Nickelback's Photograph, the studio recorded version as well as the live version. I plugged in $20 and queued up those 2 songs alternating as many times as I could, then left the bar. If I were to estimate, I made those people listen to that song for at least 45 minutes. Nothing like pranking an entire pub. I called my dad. Put on my best Agent Smith voice. Is this the brave Lil Toaster's father? His full name. Pause. Yes, repeated his name. Yes, we have a report here that you have been flagged for a delinquency to pay child support to a Jonathan Toaster. Silence. The record here shows that you have been delinquent for support to the tune of $19,864. Attempts have been made to collect, and it has been discovered that you have also been evading your taxes for a number of years. Who is this? This is William Turturro from the Federal Bureau of. Click. Hangs up the phone. I get a call from him a couple days later, telling me this crazy story about someone from the government calling him about child support and taxes. I say, was it William Turturro? Silence. Fuck yo. Click. I hung up on him. Ha ha ha. I am going to hell. I pulled off one of the greatest pranks ever about 5 years ago. My granddaughter, then about 14 or 15, had this thing for llamas. I mean, she had a thing. So I decided that it would be funny to get everyone I knew to text her April Fool's Day and ask simply, do you still have the llama for sale? Regardless of what she responded, if she responded, they were to reiterate again, do you still have the llama for sale? I carefully chose people I knew that were trustworthy and not in my area code. I had my brothers, sisters and friends from as far as California, Colorado, Oregon, Florida, as well as friends from Canada and Mexico. I even got my cousin who lives in Japan to text her in Japanese, and the friend in Canada texted using French. My rules were simple and the time frame was set to end at noon in her time zone, Central US. I was on the road to go visit the family and didn't realize that she was spending the night at her dad's. Sunday morning, she wasn't around, but everyone let me know they sent their texts. She came into her mom's house, where I was, about 5 in the afternoon, and I asked her, let me ask you something. Do you or do you not have the llama for sale? The look in her eyes told me it went over well. She even had tears at the corners of her eyes as the emotion swirled about in her. She said she was totally blown away and couldn't get anyone to tell her where they saw the ad, or anything. Her dad was almost angry at her for something he had no idea about. We still laugh at it today. One of my best. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.